What would happen if all the bees disappeared from Earth? It wouldn't be the end of the world the next day, but it would begin a change that would reach much farther than you might imagine. During the first day, we probably wouldn't notice any major changes. Flowers would remain open, crops would continue growing, and our lives would seem exactly the same. But something essential would have disappeared. After 1 week, millions of flowers would begin to miss one of their most important visitors. Without bees carrying pollen from one flower to another, many plants would have greater difficulty reproducing. 1 month later, the problem would begin to affect some crops. Plants that depend heavily on animal pollination could produce fewer fruits, and some harvests would begin to decline. 3 months later, the effects would become increasingly visible. In some fields, fewer fruits would be developing, because many flowers would not have received enough pollen. 2 years later, the change could even be seen in the soil. Some plants would produce so few seeds that, in certain places, a new generation might simply never return. 3 years later, the effects could continue to spread. If certain plants declined, some insects, birds, and small animals would lose part of the food sources and shelter they relied on. 4 years later, by then, losing honey would be one of the smaller problems. The real absence would be in the millions of visits to flowers that once happened every day, almost without anyone noticing. 5 years later, humans would try to compensate for part of the problem. Some flowers could be pollinated by hand, but doing it one by one would quickly reveal the enormous scale of the work that pollinators once performed. 7 years later, we would also look for new technologies. Machines and pollination systems could help in specific situations, but completely replacing the diversity and flexibility of insects would be extraordinarily difficult. 10 years later, ecosystems would not be deserts, and humanity would still exist. But many landscapes could be less diverse, and certain ecological networks would have changed profoundly. But that future can still change. Technology could also help us protect habitats, restore flower corridors, and create cities where pollinators can continue to find food and shelter. Today, the bees are still here. They are small, but they connect flowers, food, and entire ecosystems. The future has not yet been written, and as long as they continue flying from flower to flower, we still have time to protect them.